An insider revealed a major 49ers free agency update regarding one of their former players and the potential return to the Bay Area. With a lot of different parts moving around this free agency, the Niners are going to need some wide receivers, and they might just call upon an old friend for some help. But we're going to break that all down for you on this episode of Niners Digest. My name is Ethan Galbraith. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel because we've noticed 88% of you haven't done so yet. It's free to do so, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any Niners updates, because we're going to give you everything we got, including if the Niners are actually going to bring back former 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel. Cameron has talked about this previously, did a great video on that, so make sure you check that out if you haven't already. So this has been on the rumor mill for a while so far during this early period of pre-free agency. Of course, the new league year is rapidly approaching, and then free agency opens. It's going to be like the wild, wild west, and maybe Deebo Samuel is returning to the West Coast. This is a recent report saying that veteran wide receiver Deebo Samuel is not expected to return to the Commanders next season, and the 49ers are rumored to be the favorites to land him. So there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, is Deebo Samuel really going to want to come back to the 49ers? It's really a mixed bag. I do think so, because all Niners fans remember his departure. It wasn't the smoothest departure from the 49ers. Of course, multiple trade requests happened during his tenure here with the 49ers. Cameron talked about that in his previous video. So it wasn't, I wouldn't call it a full sour ending to a great tenure overall with the Niners, but the reality is still they didn't leave on the best of terms. And I think that's really unfortunate, but that's just the reality of the situation. Looking again at his statistics during his time with the 49ers, he had, of course, a great rookie season, a breakout 2021 season that got him his second contract in the NFL. And then the rest of his time here, he had some up and down, a little bit of few injury concerns here and there, including in 2020. And then 2024 just did not play that great along with the team as a whole. It was an injury-riddled season. Got traded in last offseason to Washington, and now he is likely to be available again. So whether or not the Niners and Deebo Samuel want to reunite, the question is this the right move to make for the 49ers? And the answer is no. I love Deebo Samuel. I will never forget his 2019 season, his 2021 season. Cameron talked previously about him being one of the first real gadget guys of this era of the NFL, and I fully agree. That 2021 season, he did whatever was needed of him, and that's why he understandably got paid. But that relationship, I believe, has run its course. Now, if Deebo Samuel is available and you're able to bring him back, I think it's worth looking into, because while he didn't have a standout season or a real great bounce back season with Washington in 2025, you need to take that with a grain of salt, because the Commanders had injury issues all season. Jaden Daniels wasn't available for huge chunks of the season and is now recovering from a major injury. And while Deebo Samuel is kind of a one-man wrecking crew a lot of the time, we don't know what that's going to translate to because he's out of his prime. And I bring this back up. I showed this a few weeks ago about potential 2026 wide receiver free agents. The only major update is that George Pickens of the Cowboys has been franchise tagged. But if you look at the rest of this list, I've noted Deebo Samuel and on the first iteration of this short list. But I just don't know if that's the right move now. Yes, it was a great time when Deebo Samuel was with the Niners, especially when he was able to be fully healthy. And he was just, again, a one-man wrecking crew. But with a lot of other moving parts around, I alluded to this earlier, Jawan Jennings, I don't think is going to be back with the 49ers next season because of the contract that he wants to get. And by all means, go and get your money. I just don't think the Niners are going to be able to give him that. The money can be spent elsewhere. I continue to advocate for Romeo Doubs. Alec Pierce is going to drive a high price. Look into his potential availability. Mike Evans has been rumored to be leaving Tampa. Is he going to San Francisco? I don't think so, because it goes against getting younger. And then Christian Kirk is another option, but that's also the other point. The Niners have been trying to get younger, starting last season when they let multiple major free agents walk, and then they traded Deebo Samuel as well. That was all a part of it. And they've got work to get younger. So if the Niners still have that goal, then bringing back Deebo Samuel kind of goes against that goal. He's not old at all, but there are talks about him being out of his prime now because of the last 2 seasons that he's had, which you could say whether that's fair or not because of the injuries he's had to play around. But the reality is still he hasn't put up a great consistent season in 3 seasons now. And if the Niners want to win now, is Deebo Samuel really the greatest option when you have other options available? If money was tight and they didn't have a lot of free agency options, then I would understand it more. But the Niners have the ability to go and look wider, cast a wider net and look to see what other players they can bring in that have never played for this team before. And yes, I understand that Deebo Samuel represents a level of comfort, previous success while he was on this team. But the Niners can't be blinded by nostalgia here. Yes, he had a great tenure while he was here, but they can't be blinded by that. It's not going to work. If the Niners are really insistent on having one of these one-man wrecking crew players, go get a new one. Yes, it would be technically unproven, but one of the players that has been drawing a lot of attention in the NFL draft, for example, has been Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana. He just got done with the NFL Combine. The NFL Combine is fresh on everybody's mind. And Cooper Jr. had a pretty solid performance. He was graded at a 6.36, which for those of you who may not understand the grade of that, it translates to they think he's eventually going to be a starter, which is perfectly fine. If the Niners want to get younger, this is an opportunity to continue to do that. And I'm not saying he's Deebo Samuel. What I am saying is that they've compared him to Deebo Samuel. Here is Cooper Jr.'s analysis. They say it right there at the top. The NFL comp is Deebo Samuel. And just reading into this right here, big, strong target whose 2-year rise is bolstered by translatable tape. If you turn on the tape, he plays like Deebo Samuel. And I'm not just saying that as an excuse to go get a different player, because the reality is I don't know if the Niners need this type of player on their roster right now. One of the biggest issues or red flags with the most recent iteration of the Niners receiving room, aside from the fact that Brandon Ayuk was not available all year and other injuries, is that there wasn't a consistent wide receiver who could get major separation. Now, I'm not saying Omar Cooper Jr. won't be able to do that at the next level, but if they want to get a receiver like Deebo Samuel to play that role, that still leaves that void of the Niners not having a receiver who can get major separation. Ricky Pearsall showed flashes of it this past season, but he had injuries all year. He was not able to be that player consistently. I go back to this. There isn't a wide receiver one on this team right now. And the Niners, should they bring back Deebo Samuel, he's not going to be wide receiver one. So bringing back Deebo Samuel would be super cool. I would support it if it happens, but it doesn't fill the void that the Niners need at wide receiver, in my opinion. So that's where my final thoughts are. The Niners have had great memories with Deebo Samuel. This is, of course, the wild card game against the Dallas Cowboys back in 2022. He played great in this. It was a pinnacle moment of one of the greatest seasons by a Niner we have seen in recent history. So I'm not knocking Deebo Samuel's performance, but what I am saying is that if the Niners are going to bring back Deebo Samuel, it's not going to be the same. I wouldn't anticipate it to be the same, and they shouldn't either, because if you remember, this is the Deebo Samuel that was most recently with the Niners. And he wasn't a bad receiver at all, but you can remember the drops against the Rams, the frustration, the final request for a trade, the relationship seemed to have run its course. So is it really the best idea for the Niners to just bring him back 1 year removed? Now, this is all still rumors. This could very well not happen, but if he becomes available in free agency, is it going to happen? I don't think that's the right move. The Niners need to direct their attention. If they want to keep getting younger, go get a receiver in the draft. If they want to go make a free agency splash, look elsewhere, in my opinion. But that's all we have for this episode of Niners Digest. We'll keep you updated on all of the Deebo Samuel rumors and additional wide receiver rumors as well. So for all, thank you so much for watching. My name is Ethan Galbraith, and we will see you in the next video.